You're all dressed up for a podcast.
Just for you, Al.
Let's go. You're listening to Making Data Simple, where we make the world of data effortless, relevant, and yes, even fun.
I hope our podcast, Making Data Simple, is finding you all well. Welcome back. I like interviewing different roles in the industry. And today it's hitting close to home as I have an individual that is part of tech sales, part of the organization I'm responsible for worldwide, which is Kristen McGarry. Kristen is a principal account technical lead for the financial services market here at IBM. She's based in New York City, but she is from the Midwest. She engages daily with some of the largest, well, at least one of the largest financial institutions globally, but she does that across the business or across that industry, I should say. And she looks for opportunities for innovation. She accelerates time to value, operationalizing new solutions across software, hardware, services. In her prior role, she was a data science elite team, right? That's where I really got to know Kristen, I think, for the first time. She holds a master in informatics and public health with a data science concentration, and that's from the University of Michigan. Welcome. Thank you for being here. We're going to have some fun today, I think.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Technical sales at IBM, for those of you that are listening, is really sales engineering. It's a sales engineer along with a seller. So we partner one to one. And I've worked with Kristen. She's in technical sales, but she's what we term an account technical leader. That is for our Fortune 500 clients. By example, the client that she works, I don't know, you work with about 80% of the time, they're in the Fortune 50. So huge client. She's hanging out with the best of the best in the financial industry. The way I look at the role for those that are listening, it's three parts. A trusted technical advisor for our clients, number one. Number two, we co-create with proof of experience activities. And number three, then we progress those opportunities to client success. Kristen does this extremely well with a ton of energy. Very approachable. I think that's the Midwest influence.
That is the Midwest part.
All these were reasons I wanted to chat with her on the podcast. Give us a quick bio of yourself. I give the intro, but I want to hear from you.
Sure. So as you mentioned, I am an account technical lead for the U.S. financial services market, but I really like to think of myself as more of a technical relationship manager. Obviously, with the clients I'm working with, they are highly sophisticated, intelligent, Wall Street-esque individuals. And a lot of the time, it is coming with a nice big smile and Midwest attitude to kind of get everyone aligned to your mission. What I love about my role is I do get to keep exercising that data science muscle as it kind of applies to all parts of the IT journey. Even if you think about like security, for example, it is all being revolutionized by AI. Like, how can we identify different hallucinations? How can we validate the right person is connecting? How can we help make sure we're identifying the right fraudulent activity when it happens? And that makes my job really exciting. I even help a lot with the mainframe side of the house as well as the cloud side of the house, looking at things like how can we take some of our core data systems, be payments or transactions, and try to get some low latency, real-time data and analytics out of it. So I kind of cross the gamut of all of that. Overall, I love it. It's great to have that data science piece plus the new frontier of tech.
And a great communicator, if you haven't already, you can already tell. Here's what we'll do. We'll talk about data science. We'll talk about financial industry, what you've learned there. We'll talk a little bit about technical sales around the ATL role and anything you want to go to in between. But we'll also talk about WIT, which is Women in Technology. So you've been at IBM, for 5 years, something like that?
5 years, yep.
First role?
This is my third role within the organization, but all in the financial services realm.
But all with IBM?
Yes. Before that, I was in academia.
Very good. All right, I got it. So why IBM? Let's start there.
Good question. So I initially was attracted to IBM as part of the Watson Health activity. So as you mentioned, my background is in health IT. So I have a master's in public health, and even all my undergrad was focused on genetics and bioinformatics. And so I always was really impressed to see how we were revolutionizing the healthcare industry by applying these new technologies and really having as much data as possible so we can have more realistic analytics. I came into IBM and I, to be honest, didn't really know what business we were in besides the interest in healthcare coming out of school. But I've been blown away by the amount of trust we have with our clients and the amount of history. There's a lot of new techs and fintech companies on the block that have really bloomed in the past, 2 decades or so, even the last decade, if you think of generative AI and LLMs. And IBM has been one of those trusted partners for 100 plus years, which is really something unique that you don't see in the tech industry. So that's why I initially chose IBM and why I'm still here. I also love that it's allowed me to grow and have the flexibility in deciding what I want to make out of my career path. It's not a very linear one where it's, principal data scientist, senior data scientist, distinguished engineer that way. You can really take and choose what you want just given the size of the company.
How do you describe yourself? I mean, is your brand data science now? You started out in healthcare.
So data science is my major. I will say how I got engaged was it focusing in biology in undergrad. The first flavor I got of programming was we were going through genetic sequences and trying to identify patterns of high risk things like, cancer sequences, or can we look for like the BRCA gene, things like that. Nice. And that was using the simplest thing, regular expressions, but it was really powerful to see like how we could use something as simple as that to really have effects on the genetic industry. So that's where I first got the interest into it. And then I very quickly pivoted over to the data science aspect of it, going deeper into data mining and big data analytics and machine learning and statistics. So my master's really was a hybrid where I still had that public health genetics realm, but it was all focused on how can we apply these foundational computer science technologies plus the advances in machine learning to help transform it. Now, what I really love is being on the cusp of both business and IT, because I think data science is uniquely positioned over a lot of like traditional software development to have a foot in both, because everything we do is really data business impact driven, more so than, kind of like writing code to automate a process. It's more about, okay, let's look at the personalization journey for a customer calling into our call center, and how can we improve data science in little snippets throughout that whole journey.
So as you kind of say, just to repeat, the account technical leader role, I mean, it's rooted heavily both in business in terms of finding solutions, starting top down with use cases, and then get heavily technical across essentially all the solutions IBM has to offer, which is infrastructure, that's software, that's AI, that's security, is automation, it's power, storage, the whole gamut, hybrid cloud. Do you consider yourself a data scientist, or do you now consider yourself that balance between business and technology more generally?
My role now is definitely more generally in both, but data science is transforming every single aspect of that journey, which is why, like I was mentioning, when you look at security, it really is around like, how do you modernize that with AI? How do you modernize your application monitoring tools with AI and whatnot? So much more responsibility now, but I think data science is the foundation and the future of that whole entire stack.
Fair enough. Hey, I have 3 daughters. None of them chose to go into the field that I'm in. And look, I'm smart enough to know that that's probably because I'm in the field. Having said that, they've done all good by themselves, and they're in healthcare. Well, 2 are in healthcare. 1 is in law. So she'll probably help the healthcare piece out at some point. So 3 daughters, I couldn't get them in the field. You're a woman in technology. You're doing extremely well. You're doing everything from business, data science, etc. What attracted you to get into data science?
Yeah, great question. So no one in my family has any tech background whatsoever. So it's not like I grew up in a software development space. Both my parents were in finance, and then my extended family is distributed across healthcare and sales and the like. So what actually got my first interest in computer science is my now husband. We were dating in undergrad, and he was a computer science major. Mm-hmm. And he said, you should really look at this coding thing. And my first reaction was like, ugh, like, really? That seems like a lot of guys in that area. But as I took my first informatics course, I ended up loving that it was another language and another way to communicate in order to kind of grow and be more proactive in a lot of the day-to-day implications. So having that impact, whether it be proactively predicting who's going to default on a loan or proactively predicting who's going to develop COVID within the inpatient center. That's really what attracted me. Now, what was interesting is when I was in undergrad a decade ago, masters in data science wasn't really a thing. Like it was just starting to get there, but it was more focused on the application in a given field, which is why you see people like health informatics or quant analysis who are focused on that particular field of data science in the area. But it's amazing to see how much the field has grown just in that decade, where now you've got undergrad and masters and certificates of data science that are spread out across all universities. And I think it also is aligned with the rapid changing in the industry, where now things like generative AI and chat GPT are becoming a dinner table topic that really wasn't on people's radar a decade ago.
So what does your husband do now?
My husband is still a software developer. He's a software developer manager for a high frequency trading firm.
Who has the better job?
Ooh, depends on the day.
Do you guys like compare notes at the dinner table?
You know, it's honestly one of the best part of our relationships. I mean, it's fun to see both different sides of the coin, and even as all the code generation things were coming out with Gen AI,
Mm-hmm.
he was my guinea pig that I could go and ask him all the questions around, like, would you really use this? Would your CTO approve you using this? You know, how would you encourage your teams to do it? So I love it. It's great.
So as an account technical leader, you serve as essentially the technical arm of the sales function in concert with the seller. What does a day for you look like?
My days change every day, to be honest, which is part of the reason I love the role of account technical lead. Some days it is focused more on innovative discussions with clients, bringing us a business problem and asking us how we can help, like the call you and I were on yesterday. Other days it's around providing support. Maybe a software is down or a system is having a failure issue, and making sure the client feels that, you know, we are right alongside them, helping troubleshoot that area. On other days, it's a lot of internal management, in the sense that for our largest accounts, we have a lot of teams available to help, including client engineering, pre-sales teams, our customer success managers, even our tech and sales teams. And so the largest role I wear is making sure that we're all aligned to the unified technical strategy that we're trying to implement with the given client. So that's another fun part of the job, but it's making sure that we're all marching in the same direction. And it's also clear to our client that we're showing up as one IBM.
Innovation, support to make sure we mean what we say what we mean, and do what we say relative to the products that we've provided to the client, and then just internal management. Those three angles, yep. Those three legs of the stool. So what is the division of labor between you and the seller?
Yeah, that's a great question. So first of all, for our large accounts, we have multiple sellers by brand. So even on one of the accounts I cover now, we've got, 6 or 7 sellers that spanned everything from data and AI, automation, Z systems, the like. So I don't see it as a true handoff. I see it as a collaboration. Where I work closely with our brand sellers is typically myself or the client exec will help develop the relationship with the client that we're wanting to work with. Then we'll bring in the right respective seller to hear out the use case and make sure we have alignment. And then we work in parallel where I'm driving the technical piece of it. So be a proof of concept with some of our pre-sales team, be a services proposal that we're aiming to put together, while in parallel, my seller is driving the actual software sales activity. So things around pricing and quoting correctly, making sure it fits it into the budget, and a lot of those kind of day-to-day operations of the sales team. But it really is a collaborative process where we're driving both motions in parallel.
To give you recognition, it seems like you're always moving forward. What I mean by that is you talk about innovation, support, internal management. So my question to you is, how do you continue to keep that momentum forward and don't get stuck on the past and hit new horizons with the client?
To say that simply, I'm happiest when I'm solving challenging problems. And once you've already solved a problem, of course, I love the moment of celebrating and hand fives and everyone having it. But I want to keep going because that's what gives me the most fulfillment. So I will say I do like to have that breath and different threads that are going on and make sure that we're all marching towards the same drum. But at the end of the day, we're doing a service to our clients and we want to make sure that we're being as quick and responsive as possible.
But let me ask you, what kind of secrets do you have? It seems like you've got some kind of system, or maybe I'll call it a management system.
Okay. I sure.
Well, maybe you don't. Maybe you're winging it. I don't know.
I'm not winging it, but I don't think there's a secret sauce. But I will say, when I first took on the ATL role, the network was the most challenging piece of it because in every other role I've had, you don't own the client relationship. And so you get to come in and out, you come in, you share your knowledge, and then you go away. But being in the account technical lead, you're really owning that discussion, owning that relationship, owning the outcome, which changes the way you interact with them. So what I mean, it's a challenge. There's more to client relationships than just content. Like content is a critical piece of it, and you want to make sure that you're bringing the right SME to the table to talk about, database modernization or Zeef refresh or whatever it may be. But there's also a huge angle of personality matches. There's some personalities where people think they are, the smartest guy on the block. They've been on Wall Street for years, and you need to approach them very differently than the person that wants a personal connection and feels like I can trust you, I can hang out with you, I want to do outside activities with you, stuff like that. So yes, getting the right match is critical. And then what I do a lot internally is there's so many different enablement sessions where people come and present across IBM on a variety of different topics. And so I make my own mental note of who was good here, who did a good job being clear and concise, and then help with that matching process. But I think the other big part of it is really just listening to your client. Right? It sounds so simple and something we should all be doing, but the clients often guide us and they just want to feel like they're being understood, their problems being understood. So having that consistent playback and gut check of, well, is this really what you were saying? Or am I thinking about it right? Ultimately helps us get to the right outcome.
Do you have like touch points that you schedule, et cetera, in your calendar to make sure that you are using that network efficiently?
I do know people who will set a reminder of, hey, every 3 weeks I need to send a note to Al and follow up on XYZ activity. What I love about the account I have right now, they are very receptive to a partnership. And so it's a much more bi-directional interaction when it comes to those reach outs. But ultimately, to help build up those relationships, it really is about not just consistency in the outreach, but it's proving value, because they can quickly sniff out, just like all of us, if someone is trying to BS you or if they really have something of value. And so making sure that what we're delivering when they ask, we're moving quickly, we're bringing something back that's relevant. And, if we can't help, we're honest about that as well, so that we're not kind of wasting anybody's time.
It resonates with me when you talk about addressing people differently, meaning like I've worked with an external coach and they'll give you like assessments. You can find out what kind of thinker you are, but also what kind of thinkers others are. So how you match up, how to better collaborate versus, going head to head. Do you think your Midwest demeanor has helped or hurt? I mean, you're dealing with Wall Street here.
I think it is good in the sense that at the end of the day, we're in customer service, right? So just like if you were working at a retail store or a drive-through or whatever, it's providing that level of service and making sure customers understand you're serious and there for them and whatnot. But I think the challenge is also something that as a woman, I face more than my male counterpart is I still want to be taken seriously, right? And there's a level of nicety, but you have to back it up directly with content. Otherwise, you kind of stay in this, high level conversation and don't get to the root of a lot of stuff. There are people who come in a lot more aggressively, like the old Wall Street way. And some people really resonate with them. Other people, it puts them off right away. So I think it's really about knowing yourself and knowing your style, but ultimately being authentic. Because if you're not authentic, it's not going to be productive for anybody.
Look, I've seen you in action and you back it up with your technical acumen. So going back to the outcomes we see with this role, what you do as an account technical lead is you start off with the client technical strategy. You can continue to progress that strategy. You identify opportunities when you're working with clients that they collectively want to pursue. You show, not tell, you demo, you MVP, whatever, and then you move those forward. Very simple, high level elements that, typically I'm proposing, preaching, trying to provide tools to a greater team to make it easier for them. What am I missing? If there was a one you would add, what would it be? I just went through client technical strategy, opportunity identification, proof of experience, progression. And then we also have one more thing we call our technology decision points, which are a look at the architecture or the technology solution that brings everything together.
The reality is, on the ground, the account technical lead, you are bringing together so many voices across IBM and trying to make it into one coherent strategy and alignment. So my feedback would be less is more. The one thing I don't think we do enough of, and not just for ETLs, but for all of our sales facing roles, is how to do customer service. Like really, like how do you respond to a client when they have their request? How do you respond in a quickly timed manner? How do you handle things when it's a Sev 1 and it's all hitting the fan and you got to react quickly and show up as a leader and someone that they can trust to get it done? Those are little soft skills that we often don't think about for a lot of our client-facing roles. But if you don't have that foundation, the rest doesn't matter, right? So you have to get that layer there in order to align the right technical pieces.
I grew up in technical support. You're right. It is a skill that it is continually learned. Soft skills. People look at soft skills and like, that's I'm not going to spend my time on it. I'm going to go learn something more technical. Soft skills, that's how you connect and draw those relationships out. I talked about some of the outcomes we look for around ATL, which is essentially to, progress opportunities, et cetera, and develop those long-lasting relationships with the clients. But there's a how that goes with it. And there's several things I see that needs to be done. The first one, and you mentioned this even to start the podcast, was skill. Skilling up, being a continuous learner. So I want to extrapolate on what you said earlier. You were on the data science elite team, which was an awesome team that helped to adopt or drive AI adoption for clients. Now you find yourself in every technology out there. How do you skill up? How do you maintain that skill? How do you make time for skill? How have you made the transition?
Yeah. So you're right in the sense that you always have to be learning. And so a lot of what I continuously do and what I really focused on when I first joined the role is getting as much breadth as possible, as quick as possible. So a lot of that means that you don't need to be a master in every area. We've got brand distinguished engineers and fellows who have mastered this particular area. ATLs don't need to be that. You need to know who to call and when to call them, but you need to be able to have enough breadth that you can have the first few conversations to quickly identify what the issue is and who you need to bring in. So that continuous learning angle is definitely a big part of it. The other thing is making sure that you understand how things connect together. One of the beauties of the ATL role is that we are not siloed by brand. So I always like to think of things like AI and automation are really not that far away. So how can we bring both of them together to solve a use case that maybe those brand silos wouldn't necessarily think about? So making that connectivity across multiple ones is also a skill that's important and one to learn about. And then the other thing I do is I block at least 2 hours a week on my calendar just to learn something new. So whether that's listening to a podcast, grabbing a new book, learning about a new acquisition, whatever it may be, but making that time investment, because you don't know you need the information until you need the information. And so it's always good to be on top of everything and make sure you're ready to go when the opportunity arises.
So what I thought I heard you say then, you are blocking some time during the week for specific learning. And then in addition to that, it's about getting in front of the next opportunity. The great news about you is you've got tons of opportunities you're coming away. Bad news, I guess, is preparation is key, but you're preparing for these opportunities, learning on the job, so to speak, in addition to dedicated time. That's what I heard.
Yep.
I talked a little bit about the client technical strategy. We like to have a client technical strategy for all of our clients, notably our top critical clients. I would imagine for the client that you're on, that can be difficult though, because of how big the business is, how vast the business is. And then because you've become their trusted advisor, you're constantly receiving new problems. I would imagine that you can get sideways with that client technical strategy because they're out in front. Sometimes you got to set the client and help them and get them out in front. I think the client you have probably needs some of that, but then they also have so many ideas coming at you at any given time that you kind of got to aggregate those, make sense of it, put it into the larger plan. How do you do that?
With my client in particular, they are advanced in the terms of they have a very clear technical strategy that they are trying to do, right? And it includes a encompass of cloud modernization, mainframe modernization, optimizing data center space, and AI infusion into a lot of their day-to-day business. Fortunately for me, that aligns very closely with our IBM model. And so there is a lot of overlap with things like OpenShift and making sure we've got the right containerization strategy in place so that we can lift and shift and whatnot. So a lot of my role when I'm pulling together that technical strategy is rather than creating something new, it's ensuring direct alignment to where they're going and being honest around which areas or which brands we can really hit it out of the park with direct alignment, and which ones might need some more help to tune and get to where they need to go. So it is about the alignment piece and making sure that we're all marching in the same direction. But I think it's also about having the client view us as a visionary into what's to come. And even though they know where they're headed, how can we almost be 2 steps ahead of them and direct the 2024, 2025 plus strategy as we partner together?
I still believe in the challenger sell of teach, tailoring, and take control, meaning most clients, including myself, everybody wants to learn. They want to be taught something. So you don't want to be reactive. And what I do see you doing is somebody does come to you with a problem and you're able to come back at that problem and say, but have you thought about this and this and this, and this will align with your larger strategy. By the way, it also aligns. Sometimes you got to tell the same client what's happening in another part of their business that we know that they may not even know. I see that happening as well. Mm-hmm. Going back to your management system, do you have certain days where it's meeting on site with the client and having a scrum with them and maybe some of the key influencers? What do you see, or how do you orchestrate that management system?
There's 2 types of management system and where you're headed. There is the internal management system and then there's the client management system. So on the internal management system side, we have 2 scrum calls a week. The first one we call is the start of the week, first thing in the morning on Mondays, where we get the whole entire extended team together and everyone gets 30 seconds. What are the top 3 things you're working on? We're short and succinct. And if there's something we need to collaborate on, we do it offline. So that's where we keep the status of everyone in uniform. We then also have a separate ATL run call that we usually have on Wednesdays or Thursdays. We grab an hour with our key technical delivery people. So again, client engineering, customer success managers, our tech sellers, and we make sure that the POCs or projects that are actively in flight are getting the right support or leadership they need. And if there's something that needs the attention, we use that as an opportunity for them to raise it. And so we can make sure that we're getting a lot of support for the technical teams on the ground. On the customer relationship side, I'm a huge fan of picking a day of the week where we show up to the headquarters and that's where we work all day. So our day is Tuesday, which I personally like, and we'll go there and work out of the headquarters. and try to align all of our meetings or discussion to that day. Now, of course, other meetings get scheduled and we're usually there 4 to 5 days a week, not just the one day. But we all know that is the day where if the client needs us, we're going to be available and we're going to be down in the lobby having a coffee and doing our work down there. So that is one layer. Where it does get a little bit challenging with a global client is you're global, right? So not everyone is based in the one central headquarters. They're typically distributed to a number of different offices. And so what I try to do is at least once a month, pick a different city that I'm going to go to and make sure that those representatives feel like they're getting attention as well. Because especially with COVID, I think it's just emphasized the importance of in-person interactions. Everyone wants to have that humanized element of it. And so I really make sure that even if they're not in the headquarters, we're still getting that time and opportunity to build a relationship and work on some cool stuff together.
What have you learned in your tenure of being on Wall Street?
What I've learned most about the financial industry is how quickly it moves, especially compared to healthcare, where I came from, where there's a lot of processes and steps and boards and things that require approval before you have any tech rollout. Finance is obviously it's a money game. Everyone's trying to optimize the amount of dollars in their pocket, which means that every minute, every second, every day really does matter. Now, of course, they are a heavily regulated industry, and you still need to make sure we're mitigating the right risks and controls, and we have that all in place. But it really is one of those fast-paced things where you'll have things like quantum come out, and people will be like, yes, how do I get engaged? And want to be on the forefront, understanding how that technology can impact a lot of their day-to-day. Now, of course, that also changes in what part of finance you're in. So if you're in like a traditional consumer banking, not as much. If you're in asset management, your firm's success rides on adapting and quickly responding to some of that technology. So just the speed is one thing that I learned, and it's what makes the field exciting because you always get to do new things and tackle new challenges.
Two things stand out to me based on my experience, and it's very similar to what you said. It's interesting that we align here, and that is, look, they're always willing to take on that new opportunity, or they want to explore it. I mean, they'll be the first one on quantum computing to say, "Hey, let's go tour the facility. Let's see how we can better some of our models." But the second thing is regulation, kind of as you say. So it is kind of an interesting dichotomy. What do you think the biggest challenge that you've encountered with the financial industry?
The biggest challenge when it comes to technology in the financial industry is it's got to be cloud, right? Everyone is wanting to move to cloud as quickly as possible, but regulations and making sure you have the right security approval has hindered a lot of that movement. A lot of the clients I've been working with are prioritizing what workloads go where and embracing both a cloud and an on-prem hybrid solutioning so that they can get the best of both worlds. But 3-4 years ago, everyone was like gun ho, yes, we're going to get to the cloud and we're going to get to the cloud. Now, I think you're finally seeing where people are like, it's not that easy, right? There's a lot of things we got to do in order to get there.
So what's the biggest challenge in data? We are supposed to be a data podcast.
The biggest challenge of data is still just getting the data in a single view that you can really leverage and start building models off of. The challenge is it's stored in all different places and all different locations, and being able to, of course, virtualize it and get the biggest view. But what I hear a lot from clients is, I've got this database or I've got this table, but I don't even know what's in it. And in order to figure out what's in it, I got to have someone manually go in and read the columns and read a few different subsets and say, oh, okay, this is trading data, and then extract it and go to the description and say, okay, trading data, and then try to do that mapping to another database and whatnot. So the actual taxonomy of sorts to be able to say, where is my data? Where does it reside? What two things are like each other? That still remains to be the challenge. But there's a huge opportunity on this generative AI forefront to actually help with a lot of semantic searches and help map the different column names to business ontologies so that we can help with the connection. So the technology is definitely there to help. But even on the data science side, that's still hindering a lot of development.
Where are you finding the best use cases in data science in the financial industry right now?
The best use cases in data science are really focused on customer facing applications. So personalization continues to be a hot topic. Think of, your standard like Netflix or whatever streaming service everyone uses these days, Hulu. How can we make sure that we're providing the right recommended content to an individual as soon as possible, as soon as possible, but also in the right format that they want to receive it. So that continues to be at the forefront. And then obviously everyone's talking about generative AI. Even the other day, I went to a family function, and again, all different backgrounds, all different levels of education. Everybody knew what ChatGPT was, and everybody was playing with it and adding in, hey, can you write a poem about whatever? Or can you summarize this document, and having fun with it? So enterprises are really starting to think about, okay, that's great for consumers, right? And having that fun level of interaction, but how can I harness this technology in different use cases? So for that, contact centers, can we have a better virtual assistant or chatbot that's answering real-time questions? Anything around summarization. So a lot of use cases around there's hundreds and thousands of regulatory documents out there. How can I quickly scan through them and parse out the new obligations or risk that my bank needs to be worried about and implement those into new risks and controls? So all of those are fair game as people think about use cases. And then, of course, there's still the whole application modernization layer, which is how can I prioritize my applications to be containerized or move to new places? And all of that has a data science flavor to help automate the movement.
If there's one point you think clients are missing around data science, generative AI, etc., what do you think it'd be?
It's not a research activity. There's a lot of innovation and center of excellences that are playing around with this technology, which is fantastic. And you need that as well in order to advance the industry. But it's here and it's real. And we shouldn't lose the focus on starting to apply it to businesses and get out of this like POC phase.
When I was talking with clients like a couple of weeks ago, I did a pitch here in Kansas City. I might share that pitch, by the way, if I can get the audio from it. But anyway, the one thing I find is that, like, you can look at ChatGPT. Everybody sees that because it was a commercial offering, right? You can feel it. It tells stories, and that's how we think in terms of stories. So we connect with it. We go, oh, wow, that's cool. But it's just a language model. And the real glue is the foundational model underneath, the transformer it's built on, and the fact that you can do generative AI. Where I'm going with this is there's a lot of things that can be considered a language. And you can do the same with so much real use case opportunities like molecular biology, like, finance is a language. Once your mind pivots and you say, oh, I kind of get this now, there's a ton of opportunity. It's ready today. You can get it done today. Now, you'd want to do it on your own data, behind your own firewall, in your control, in your domain. And that's, it's why you and I both still at IBM, because that's where we specialize. You're not going to see us on the commercial front. We're going to be helping enterprises solve problems, given the right answer, eliminating those hallucinations you talked about to begin the call, but to really provide value. Where do you think we're going to be in a year or two?
I do think you're going to see more large language models in the call center. I think that's the low-hanging fruit in this space. So you're going to have a lot of more automated interactions. I think you're also going to see a lot more avatars and different ways of interacting that don't require a human interaction. So I think about if you've seen some of the soul machine stuff that's out there around, you're actually talking to someone who looks like a person, talks like a person, has emotions like a person, but it's not a person. So having some of those automated interactions. And I think you're also going to see a lot of these core IT areas embracing AI more. We're still at the point where you've got a lot of places in security or AI ops that are thinking about adding AI to be more proactive. But I think you're going to start seeing more people actually implementing it and embracing AI as they look to modernize some of those estates.
Look, you got a long career ahead of you. Where do you want to land in the next 5 years? Let's say, what would be of interest? I mean, where do you see yourself?
what I find the most fulfilling is I always want to be client-centric. So I see myself still being on the front line of client conversations and having that relationship with a lot of my clients. I also see myself continuing to expand outside of data science and exercise a lot of those muscles that are new to me and growing from that perspective. And ultimately, I think it would be exciting to head more into a managing director like role where I'm focused on one or two accounts or a subset of accounts and helping drive the relationship into new business areas.
I think you should just take the managing director's role you're working with right now. Why don't we just make that happen?
All right. Well,
Anything that we didn't say that you'd like to say, or either on the three topics we kind of hit today, which is data science, the account technical leader, ATL role, or a financial industry?
No, I think we got it all.
What do you work for in your free time? What do you do for fun?
I personally love outdoor activities. So I'm a big hiker, golfer, tennis on the weekends, anything I can do for fresh air. I love to travel. So we're about to go to Paris in a few
Nice.
weeks. New country we haven't been to yet. So I really enjoy that. And then the last thing, and maybe this is the fun thing about me, is I have an adorable little pug named Chugsley. And
Nice.
he really he's the center of our life. So we spend a lot of time with him, and a lot of things are Chugsley oriented, which maybe not everyone agrees with, being a dog lover, but that's our first baby.
My dogs are new kids, so yes, they are treated too well. Hey, last question, and then I'll let you go. Number one role model, not related to you.
I don't want to say a cliche answer.
You can say a cliche answer. That's okay, if that's your answer.
Well, I'll say this. My first role model, maybe not my first role, one of my top role models, and the reason I came to IBM was Ginny Rometty. I mean, being a woman in tech, the idea of being able to look up my senior leadership and see a woman running the company as a boss is one of the reasons that I was attracted to this company. So I think that's one of those big things that I always look for, is making sure I see people like me in different leadership roles that I can strive to be in. And that's one of the reasons why I chose IBM.
Great answer. And I think it's a great answer to end with. Thank you, Kristen, for being here. Learned a lot from you today. I'm sure I'm going to learn a lot more as we continue to work together. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Al.
Team, hit me on almartintalksdata@gmail.com. Love to hear from you. Until next time, we'll see you on the podcast. Later.